People say, I don't know what my purpose is, and I don't know what I want. I actually think a lot of people do, because everybody has a soul, and everybody has a soul that has the capability of speaking to you. But what we do instead is we don't listen to it. We don't listen to that magnetic pull towards something. Hi, welcome back. I am so glad you're here this week because I want to talk about something really important that I think is missing pretty greatly in the world of how do I find my purpose, fulfillment, purposeful work, doing things that you're passionate about. And that thing is, how do you know? Like, how do you really know if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, or you're doing what you're put on earth here to do? And I think we asked ourselves this question in a lot of different realms. You know, how do we know if it's like the right person to marry? How do we know if it's the right job to take? How do we know if it's the right city to live in? How do we know if it's the right house to buy? And that's just, a decision-making kind of realm of things. And I think that we can get into a lot of different areas in how best to make decisions for your particular self. But when it comes to purpose, I thought it would be helpful to talk a little bit about how do we really know if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing? How do we really know if we're following the path as it's supposed to be laid out for us? And the path of, is this right for me? Is this wrong for me? Am I doing it right? And I think that this is something that a lot of people struggle with, because even if they get to a point where they feel like, okay, I think I know what I'm passionate about, or I think I know what my purpose is. I think I know what city I want to live in. I think I know what people I want to hang out with, but I'm not sure I know how to really know. I'm not sure, I think, but I don't really know now. And so I thought I would just cover that a little bit to talk about, how does it feel? What does it look like? What does it sound like? And can you have the confidence that you are pursuing something that you're supposed to be pursuing? And I heard something on a podcast I was listening to today, which is a podcast called To Be Magnetic. And it was one of their most recent podcasts, and they're talking about authenticity and how to bring authenticity to your life, and what does that look like. And one of the biggest things that they are talking about on this podcast is purpose, and how authenticity really relates to purpose, which it totally does, 100%. And Jessica, one of the hosts, said, I see purpose and knowing you're doing the right thing with your purpose, or doing the right thing with your passions, as a magnetic pull to something. And I loved that phrase. I really loved it. And when you combine that with my definition of what is purpose, which is my definition of purpose is fulfilling your soul's desires. So if you combine a magnetic pull to something and taking action on that and moving toward it versus away from it or ignoring it, that really aligns quite well with my definition of purpose, which is fulfilling your soul's desires. Because the way your soul presents itself to you, or the way your purpose presents itself to you, is through emotions. And you are going to feel emotions when you're magnetically pulled towards something. And I don't think this is like a one and done, right? So I don't think that you feel pulled towards something and then you'll never feel it again. That's actually the direct opposite. So I really truly believe that when your soul wants something or desires something, you'll feel that magnetic pull towards something over and over and over again until you finally take action on it and your soul's like, thank you, about time. Great. Can we do more of that? And so I really like Jessica's definition because I think that it aligns really well with mine. And I really think that what ends up happening is people say, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I'm put here on earth to do. But honestly, I think the bigger problem is we're not really tapping into those magnetic poles. We're not really tapping into what the soul wants. And it's because a lot of those things don't necessarily line up with what we were told to do. It becomes a little counterintuitive, right? So if if we grew up in a world, like let's just say you grew up and your parents were both doctors. Maybe your whole family is full of doctors. And so the expectation was that you become a doctor too, right? That's what the family does. But as you get older and you go through med school and you start participating in this med school doctor track, you become very anxious. You become very agitated. You're very tired. You're very sad most of the time. You don't necessarily feel happy. Those are all massive signs that are pulling you towards something else. You may not know what that else is, but you can confidently know that if you're having those feelings, that it's not for you. And it's really hard to get out of that. So we just ignore it. We take sleeping pills to sleep better at night because we're anxious and we can't sleep. And then the next day, because we didn't get enough sleep, we fill ourselves with caffeine. And then maybe in the evenings, we go out and get drinks with friends and we numb that way. Maybe we doom scroll on our phones when we have extra time on our hands. And so when I hear people say, I don't know what my purpose is and I don't know what I want, I actually think a lot of people do, because everybody has a soul and everybody has a soul that has the capability of speaking to you. But what we do instead is we don't listen to it. We don't listen to that magnetic pull towards something. And instead, we put it aside because it's so against the grain of what we're supposed to be doing most of the time. So I thought that was a really great way to put it. And I wanted to make sure I dove into how do we know? Because I think that that's, again, it's something that's totally overlooked and it's skipped. And it's like we get told so many times, if you've ever in your entire life thought about wanting to pursue your life's purpose and you've went on a hunt to how to do that, I nearly guarantee you've run across content that said, just follow your heart, just follow your soul. But there's not this like next step in there of how to do that. And I just love this definition of following this magnetic pull towards something. That is the first how. That is how it feels. You feel pulled towards something and maybe you don't even know why, maybe it's just something so out there that you've never experienced before, or somebody, some person that you've never experienced before, or some place on earth. Like I have a friend who, she's been living in a certain city for many years now, and she's feeling pulled to move to a state that she said she would never want to live in. So that's a magnetic pull, because she literally said, it's a place I've never wanted to live. It's a place I actually said I would never live in. So not only does she feel the magnetic pull there, but it's so counterintuitive to what she's experienced in the past. So again, if we go back to the main foundation and the main definition that I like to use when it comes to purpose, is your purpose in life is to fulfill your soul's desires, then the next step behind that is start paying attention to what you are magnetically pulled to. Like you can't stop thinking about it, or it keeps coming up. And maybe it's in like really serendipitous ways. Maybe you get in a car accident. That's probably a bad example. Maybe you get in a fender bender. Let's go that one. That's less aggressive. Maybe you get in a little fender bender and you pop out of your car and you start talking to the person and they you start talking to them. It's a friendly exchange. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bump into you, whatever. And you start exchanging things. And this, all of a sudden, you realize that you're getting excited talking to this person because they're talking about what they do for a living. And let's just say they work at a local startup software company, and you've been thinking about going and working at a software company, but you don't actually work in software. And so you're nervous to try to think about how to move from whatever it is you are doing. Let's just say you're doing nursing. Gonna go completely opposite direction. Let's just say you're working in nursing, and then you run into this person who literally run into this person who's working at a startup software company, which is something you've been interested in doing. All of a sudden, you guys have an opportunity to sit down, have a cup of coffee, talk about what they do for a living. How did they get into it? What roles could you take on? Could you do marketing? Could you be an admin support? What are the things that you have that you're capable of where you could get into that space? So sometimes it happens really serendipitously, but other times it's just kind of pops up, maybe when you're going for a hike and you're alone and maybe you're listening to a podcast or something and you start getting like really motivated or really inspired and think, oh my gosh, I've never thought about doing fill in the blank, but this is really getting me excited. I've never thought about being able to make money off from taking photography. I've never really thought about that before. And I'm getting excited about that, listening to this podcast about someone who started their photography business. So if you feel those, and To Be Magnetic, the same podcast, Expanded is actually the podcast supported by To Be Magnetic. If you actually think about even those guys and what they do, they call these pings, and listening and following the pings. And if you get pinged to do something and you feel like something's really generating a lot of energy in you, your job, as it relates to the definition I use with finding your purpose, your job is to follow that. And the key here is to not feel like you're going to jump off a cliff. You're just exploring. You're just asking questions. You're just maybe meeting with somebody that does what you want to do. You're just looking on the internet. You're just Googling how to get a job at a software company. So going back to the same example, or how to start a photography business. And the reason I say to just do something small is because the reason we often don't follow those magnetic pulls is because our brain hijacks the soul, and the brain starts shutting it all down and says, no, don't do that. It's too scary. What if? And fill in a million blanks, because the mind will come up with so many what ifs. What if you want to do that and then you lose your big fancy job and we have no money, then we can't pay the bills, then we lose our house and our car and we're in shambles. So the mind will go to like these extremes with you to stop you from changing or following those magnetic pulls. So yeah, so that's the big thing about following your purpose, is really tapping into and feeling and not shoving aside these magnetic pulls that you have, which AKA are your soul speaking to you. So those are your soul's desires, and paying attention to them, following them, listening to them, and not shoving them aside is what it should feel like to try to find your purpose or explore your purpose. And the other thing that I'd like to add to this is that if you start doing this, the biggest thing is then to take action, because then you can start collecting data on whether or not this is it. So that's the other thing, is a lot of people, maybe they do start feeling those pulls and that magnetic pull, and they go, okay, great, here's the magnetic pull. And they start like really thinking about it, but then they take no action. So then there's never any data to say, yeah, this is it, or I don't think this is quite it. Let me pivot, or nope, this is not it at all. I thought I wanted to do this, but I do not want to do this. I think a great example of this is at one point, and I think I was like in my late 20s, maybe early 30s, I really love animals. And I thought to myself, I might want to go back to school to be a vet. I really was thinking about, I was looking at schools. I was thinking about applying to vet school. I was thinking about what prerequisites I would need to get into vet school. And then, so I started really like energetically playing with that, started thinking about what it would look like. And then I had this like serendipitous experience where I was at the vet with my dog and I looked in the window. There was like a little window that you could see in the back of the vet where they take the dogs and do the work on them. So it's not out in front of everybody. And I just happened to catch it. I think they might have like opened the door. Maybe there was a window or whatever, but I just happened to catch it where they were holding a dog down. He was losing his mind and they were trying to give him an injection of some sort, like, some sort of shot of some sort. And he was losing his mind. And I thought, I don't want to do that. I don't want to pin a dog down and try to give him a shot. I can't do that. That would make me so sad. I cannot do that. So the key is when you do start feeling those pings and those magnetic pulls, the key is then to take action on them. They're going to feel really good. They're going to feel really interesting. They're going to feel really exciting. That's how you define it. And then you take action to start collecting data on, is this it or is this it? And the more you collect data, the more you do, the more feedback your soul gives you, the more magnetic pulls that you'll get, the more you'll have the confidence to say, this is it. This is for sure it. And you'll stop that churn and that spinning because you'll have actual data from taking action to see then how you felt taking the action, because the only way you're going to for sure know is if you feel those magnetic pulls, those pings, your soul speaking to you, and then you take action and you see how that action feels. You can see, would I like doing this every single day of my life? Do I have the endurance to pursue this? Because that's the other thing is like when we do have purpose-filled activities in our life, it takes energy up, right? It takes energy to fulfill our purpose. And so if we feel like whatever we're doing just drains us every single day, there's a chance it's not really it. And so if we take action, then we can really start to see and start to feel and collect data and information to tell us, is this right? Is this wrong? Am I on the right path? Do I need to pivot? Do I need to go a different direction? And my only advice to you on that piece is to make sure you don't just give up. So let's just say, I use photography a lot as an example. I have no idea why, but it's just always what comes to my mind. So let's just say you're interested in photography and you have a recent friend who had a baby and she wants baby pictures taken. And so you say, you know what? I've been trying to, mess around with photography and seeing if I can make money doing photography. So I'll take your baby pictures. And then you take baby pictures and you really didn't like that. Versus if you go out and you're taking pictures of landscapes. So there's just different variations of things that you like to do, but you start with kind of this broad stroke topic and then you start drilling down by taking action and trying. But just because you didn't like taking your friend's pictures of her baby doesn't mean you don't like photography. It might just mean that you don't want to do family photography. It might just mean that you want to do some totally different other photography. So that's how you kind of A, know you're going in the direction, B, take action to really know you're going in the right direction. And the third thing, C, is you might actually end up feeling risky or different. I think that that's a really good sign you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I know that that's hard because risky and different doesn't set well with your brain, doesn't set well with your mind. Your mind will definitely try to shut the ship down if there's a lot of risk or there's a lot of difference, especially if you're generally speaking or historically speaking a risk averse person. Maybe you were raised to not be risky. Maybe you were raised to like stay on a path, don't get off it, don't care about your feelings, don't care if you're stressed, don't care if you're frustrated. You stay on that path, you work 30 years and you retire. So if you're put in a household where that is a thing, you're going to be that much more risk adverse. So when you start feeling those feelings of this is risky or this is different, there's a really good chance you're moving in the right direction because you'll feel that excitement of it. And then you'll kind of feel like your mind, you'll hear your mind getting nervous about it. So I say that because I actually like to use that as a goalpost of knowing you're on the right path, not the opposite. And a lot of people, when they start feeling like they're being risky or they're nervous about that, they actually see that as a sign that they're doing the wrong thing. And I actually think it's the opposite of that. I think it means that you're actually going in the right direction. Because, I have a friend who, for example, who she completely got out of a teaching career after being teaching for 15 years or so. And of course, getting out of a career that she was in for a long time is going to end up feeling risky to her brain. So if she had really listened to her brain, she probably wouldn't have moved toward what it is she really wanted to do, was have more freedom in her life. And she's continued to work toward, what does that mean? So I would say, in summary, it's really important to understand, how does it feel to know that you're moving in the right direction? How does it feel to know that you're moving in a direction of fulfilling your purpose or fulfilling your passions? Because when we don't really have an understanding of what that looks like, smells like, feels like, all the things, then we're not going to really know for sure, which will make us more and more nervous to actually take action and do and continue down that road to get closer and closer to our purpose. So I want to make sure I tell you guys like how it actually should feel and what it should look like, so you have a better understanding and you have more confidence to continue pursuing. And so really what that should feel like is a magnetic pull towards something. And the key there is to not shut it down. Don't shut it down. Pursue it. Get curious. Let it unfold. It'll like move you in the right direction. In fact, Jessica on the podcast, she was saying, when she talked about a magnetic pull towards something, she said that when she was in kind of more that Hollywood environment where she was on set and helping make videos or movies and shows and things like that. I guess that was probably her career before she was doing what she's doing now. But she said that she would make these psychology reports for her friends. And so she kind of just pursued this love of hers. And even though what she's doing now isn't perfectly sitting in a box of psychology, but TB Magnetic is a very neurologically based manifestation tools, and that's the company she works for now. And so she let it unfold. She kind of just followed that without questioning what the purpose of it all was. But it was more so just something she enjoyed, so she continued to do it. She followed that magnetic pull, and it unfolded into her now working at a company, Too Big Magnetic, which is a neurologically based manifestation company. So you see how it can kind of unfold if you just get curious, and it's like, follow the breadcrumbs, right? Follow the breadcrumbs and it'll take you somewhere. And then take action is the next massively critical point of all this, because then that'll give you back the data to say, do I really love this? Do I need to pivot it a little bit? Does it need a tweak or two? Does a little, knob over here need to be adjusted? A little dial over here need to be adjusted? And you kind of just like play with it, and you continue to play with it until it's like, this feels really good to me. And the third thing is just recognizing and understanding that it's probably going to feel a little risky and a little nerve-wracking. If that's the case, you're probably on the right direction. When my mom, for example, she was working like 60 hours a week in retail and wanted to have a different experience in life with her career because she couldn't take holidays off. She couldn't spend time with family on holidays. Her family was growing, so it was that much more important for her to have that time off during holidays. And she started painting furniture on the side. And I'll never forget it. We were sitting in a coffee shop, and she's like, I just know if I could do this full time, I'd be okay and I'd make money doing it. And I was like, well, then just do it. Just do it. I'll set up the LLC. We'll do this together. I'll help you set up your social media, all the things. What are we, 5, 6? I don't even know how many years later we are into this. And she's been wildly successful doing this. She has several thousand people who follow her online, and she's made big fans with certain people. Like, there are certain people who have several pieces of my mom's stuff in their house. I have stuff in my house. My brother has stuff in his house. So, but it felt risky to her is the point. It felt risky to her. She was like, I don't know. I mean, maybe what's going to happen if, and there's been some risky bumps in the road too. I mean, she hit COVID and people locked up their money and stopped spending money. So she had to figure out different creative ways to continue doing her business. So, it's going to probably feel a little risky, a little different, even for myself. I left a really big, fancy corporate career. I was an executive. I was a senior executive at a company running their commercial organization. And I left that to start my own business, start my own consulting and start my own coaching. It's like an understatement to say that I was feeling like risky and nervous. So, but it's almost like you have to surrender to that risk and that feeling of being different from your peers, perhaps, and doing something different. And that's the part that really starts getting people really tripped up. So, okay, I hope this helped you guys. I'm glad you tuned in for this, because I do think that not understanding how this is going to feel for you is a major thing that trips people up. And so if you just know how it feels and you know what it looks like, you'll be able to pursue that a lot easier. So, all right, till next time. Thanks, guys.